Oh yeah, when I was in was New Jersey or Connecticut last week, it was something like 18 degrees. It was beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous. But hold on. Let me just. There's something new I'm doing today, and here we are. Well, good morning, and an amazing morning to all of you. I hope you're all having an amazing day, week, and all that sort of stuff. Hopefully better than me. I was priorities, and I was driving back from basically I was delivering closer to the Atlantic, let's say, in the States. And if I look like I'm a little bit under the weather and lacking some energy and a little bit disengaged, it's because I have some sort of stomach flu, and I was driving back with stomach flu. And if you can't theorize, I'll just let you know that it sucks. It really sucks to be in a truck driving for hours and hours with stomach flu, but it is what it is. How long are you driving your truck? What, yesterday? Yesterday was, 12 hours or something like that. Oh, are you referring to the trolley posts online? Well, I'm going to get to that, Sonia. I love you. You're the best. Good morning, Cheryl, Jesse. Today, by the way, not only we have a little TikTok video here, so if you want to watch the stream, you can watch it on Rumble. Type in Honking For Freedom. youtube.com/BJD online, or at honkingforfreedom.locals.com. But today, I think, is the first day so far that we are doing the audio podcast. So anybody who is listening to this, I guess in the future on Spotify, congratulations for joining us. This is episode number 131 of the Freedom Coffee Livestream, where we celebrate the freedoms that we have and focus on positive energy and expanding those freedoms in the future. So if you're on TikTok, I'm going to be shutting it down now, and come join us on any of those streams. Or go to my Twitter account and you'll see the links at BJdichter, Dichter. Okay, I'm going to send that over. Forget what the description is. We'll tag a bunch of people who are there, and then they'll come in. I'm No DJ Productions. Good morning to you as well, Ken. It's good to see you. Good morning to you and everybody else. There's so this week I've had a stomach flu the entire time, and it's been a rough week. But I always talk about the good with the bad, the positive with the negative, right? And it's like, life is just about trade-offs, and there's always the positive and negative side of the trade. And this one is, I had been meaning to start focus. I usually am training this time of year. This is usually when I'm back at the gym and back at exercising and stuff. And what better way to start you on the journey of slimming down and trimming down than getting some sort of stomach virus where you can't eat, right? So I've eaten like nothing all this week, and it looks like this is going to continue for a little bit. But anyways, I do appreciate all of you, and all of you who've been sending me some comments and concerns and support and some recipes, and take this vitamin, take that vitamin. I don't know. It's just going to it's one of those things that's got to run its course, right? And it is what it is. Let's celebrate, because all the truth is coming out faster than we can keep up. The truth will set us free. The truth can set us free. That's the idea. You need to get as many people as possible to want to know the truth, which is kind of a problem. That's the big struggle. There's a lot of people in this world who don't want truth. They want confirmation bias of whatever narrative that they're promulgating, and that often becomes... Oops, hold on. Joseph is talking on my TikTok. That's the Joseph who I do the podcast with. So there's a lot of people who they prefer to be in a cognitive bubble, and they don't want to, challenge their own preconceived ideas and notions and beliefs. And by the way, that's what science is for. That's why we've created the scientific method, because if not, what's the other side is common sense. What is common sense? Well, it's usually our confirmation bias to some degree. right? Anyways, so, but on that point, yes, Sonia, we more and more people are aware of what's going on, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. The citizen inquiry and Big Con Canada. But anyways, I want to give you a little positivity tip, because I do get a lot of requests from you guys, and I apparently Rocky is watching. So Rocky, hey Rocky, I don't know how to do a bird impression. Rocky is a bird, and apparently my biggest fan in the animal kingdom. So Rocky, I send you all the best. So we talk about this in the Discord a little bit, the whole positive framing and how to overcome adversity, how to deal with not just authoritarianism, but people who either smear you, talk about you, run whisper campaigns, all that sort of stuff. All the stuff I've been going through for the past year, and I'm not new to it, so it doesn't really bother me. And this is something I learned a long time ago, because some people are asking me this week, how do you deal with this? How does it not get to you, and all that sort of stuff. And it's very simple. This is my framing. What people's opinion of me is none of my business. It's none of my business. That's their problem, right? They have whatever primed opinion that's been given to them by somebody who's smeared or talked about me or whatever. If they're going to listen to that and they don't want to know reality, okay, well, there's nothing I can do about that. It's not my problem. I just got to keep doing my own thing, and you can all do that as well. If you have people in your professional or personal lives that give you a hard time, it's none of your business. It's just like, I remember I was somewhere on campus when I still had my business, and some student said to me, I can't remember what it was, but it was one of the typical smears. Your opinions are violence, or because that sort of stuff that's not new. It's just new in the mainstream. I can't remember what it was, and it was that whole your opinions are hurting me and blah 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 and all that sort of stuff. And I said, hey, listen, your emotional state is none of my business. Just like my emotional state, it's none of your business, right? So if you're upset, okay. Well, I guess you can go get yourself unupset, And I think if we move towards that, we start not caring more and more about what anybody thinks about yourself, just focus on integrity, focusing on being good and truthful as much as possible, then there's always going to be, they joke about that on the Scott Adams podcast frequently. Everybody in his audience jokes about it. That 25% of people will get every question wrong every time, no matter what it is, right? Is the sky blue? 25% of people would say no. They would say it's some sort of lavender or some sort of interpretation or something different. They screw up everything. Always, 25% of people. So I just assume the people who are, dictors, you fill in the smear, that's the 25%. I don't really care about that. It doesn't really matter. And so don't let that stuff get you down. And and it takes a while to accept that. It takes a while to really absorb that what people think about you is none of your business. Like, it's really none of your business. People can have as much hatred for anybody as they want. That's not your problem. It's not your business. You do you. You let them do them. It becomes very freeing. And I highly recommend it. Sorry, if you knew how I felt today, you'd understand why I'm a little bit slow. One thing in the news that just came up that I wanted to acknowledge, the Vancouver Canucks. That's the Vancouver hockey team, for those of you who are in the United States or overseas, and those of you in Prague, apparently, and other places. The Vancouver Canucks, the hockey team, the headline is they reveal plans to hold a drag show before their annual Pride Night game. And I thought, this is great. This is great. I want to know, when are we going to have the stripper show in the sake of diversity, right? Because if we're going to do that, let's just go full out. Let's have full strip shows. Let's just do the whole thing. Let's test how far the lunatics on the left want to go. Let's push them over the edge. Sure, let's agree to whatever they want and then more, Absorb and amplify. At some point, they're going to realize, wait, something's wrong, which is what's going on right now. You're starting to see that people are able to talk more freely about things that they couldn't talk about 6 months ago even, right? People were afraid to talk about this lunacy and stupidity. And now people are just increasingly don't care. I saw a lot of that when I was in Florida last year, and that's now starting to spill over into other places. Jesse, I am Dichter. I am Dichter. Smear proudly. Exactly. So, I mean, what is it that they're so worried about? Because they're clearly in damage control and worried about something. Could it be something that I know? Or could it be lots of things that I know? Anyways, it is what it is. Hurt feelings is violence, didn't you know? Yeah, according to that piece of crap, that is the deputy chief of the Ottawa police force. That's why if you're following an account on Twitter, if you're looking for good accounts, I suggest Ottawa Gestapo. That is, it's an amazing account because it highlights the fact of what many other people in this space have discussed for quite some time, that we're in such absurdity in this world that it's so difficult to distinguish between parody and reality now. You had this wannabe chief of police who thankfully was denied the promotion in the POEC hearing, testifying that he was associating with, there was violence in the convoy. And when he was asked what specific incidents of violence, he says, well, I don't mean violence like in the criminal code. Well, dipshit, that's what violence is. He's like, no. Like what people were saying that and he was asked, so you're saying words are violence? And he says, yeah. That's full far leftist communist rhetoric, and how that person is not completely shunned by his community is shocking. But it is what it is, right? Okay. Well, let's get into this. This little tweet that came up. And, thanks, BJ. I've been there. I used to care what people thought of me, not anymore. That's, of course, New Cheryl. Yeah, and it's empowering. And you know what happens when you don't care what people think of you? Then they reach out to you. They look at you and they see you as a leader. And they reach out to you for advice and suggestions and ideas, right? That's where leadership is, for me, that's where it builds upon the fact that you are your own independent individual. You don't care what anybody says or thinks or feels. I mean, like, within reason. You care what your family thinks, right? But sometimes your family just doesn't get it either. Okay, fine. Maybe one day they'll wake up. David, good morning from Alberta. See, I told some of you it's the morning. And good morning, David. We are doing the first Freedom Coffee live stream in audio form on Spotify. So for those of you who are asking what's the link on Spotify, I haven't a clue. I won't know until I record this first one. I'm going to sort that out, and I'm also going to sort out the RMTP in locals, and once I can do that, then there's going to switch to be a lot more of a bias towards locals, and I'll be sharing a lot of that stuff in the Discord, and if you want to be in the Discord, let me know. Lisa, yet the cops stand and watch while the woke mob beats up parents at a school board meeting. Yes, it's called Fido, which is forget it and drive on, or, F it and drive on. That's been a phenomenon in policing now since, 10 years in North America, at least. I mean, we had that idiot as our mayor, John Tory, is a perfect example of that. When they got rid of carding, and listen, I don't want to be in a police state either, but there are some people in society, the example I was given to by a cop, he says, if I'm doing just a regular patrol, and I see 2 or 3 guys in the back alley of an industrial parkway, all dressed in dark, and suspicious body language behavior. He said you can always see it when there's either a drug deal or something like that. When I see that, I know my years of experience, something's going on, right? In the past, I would have gone up to them and I would have, they would have encroached and try to sit back and try to monitor the situation first, get a sense of what's going on before they would talk to them, and then that's where carding comes in. Explain, who are you? Show me your ID and whatever. And that often sometimes would lead to an arrest, sometimes it wouldn't, or whatever. Or sometimes it would just lead to intelligence gathering, which is what a lot of cops do. He said, but now we don't do it anymore. It's called proactive policing. You know why? Because your idiot politicians don't want proactive policing. So because they don't want proactive policing, I, as a cop, as he said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put my life on the line and the livelihood of my family on the line so I can go ask a question and just be, labeled a racist and called in front of a human rights tribunal and put on suspension and leave and, go under an SIU investigation. So that's why. That's why things are going to hell. That's why it's becoming more violent, and it will escalate. And I think the tipping point will be, like in Latin America, when people will realize there's a problem is when kidnappings start to become normalized. Like when people have their children, when you have your children kidnapped, like at the mall or whatever, and then held for ransom, because that's what's coming here. That's what your politicians are bringing here. You elect cowards, you elect stupidity, you get stupid results. So, and I know because this is what you see in Latin America. This is normalized there already. It's too bad. It's really too bad. All right. So back to the funny stuff. You need to understand the politics behind that. There is a minority of the radicalized LGBT that receives money from the government to divide. Yes, they do. I know those people are as well. I'm part of the LGBT community, and most of us do not support that. That's 1,000% true. And, that's I don't want to call it a group because there's all sorts of different people in the LGBT community. But they're being used just as a political pawn by political parties, by the radical left, just to brainwash people and further radical left agendas. That's all it is, right? Discord banned Sargon of Akkad for speech, so I avoid it. What do you mean? I'm on Sargon of Akkad's Discord. He's not banned. Yeah, I have it right here. It's right down here. I'm looking at his Discord here. He wasn't banned from Discord. He was banned from Patreon. So I don't know, Ken, but maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's another Discord. Something. All right. So there was a tweet. I should put it up actually, or I can get the image here and open it up for you. There was I don't know where it is. So let me find the tweet. There was a tweet put up, a question that was asked of me. I'm not sure the relevance of the question, but I figured, hey, there's a good time to answer somebody's question, even if it's a silly question. So it was a question from, let me just make sure there's, okay, let me put this here. It's question from Chris Barber, who I haven't spoken to much at all, especially in the last year, but since he sided with the saboteurs. But he said this. He put a picture of himself looking quite silly. It's the same truck as my brother's. Yeah, okay. Anyways, he says 30 years trucking with a stick shift led the world's convoy. Okay. Hashtag winning and proud. How many years have you been driving, BJdichter? All right, well, I guess it's a little swinging your dick around. Is that the attempt here? I don't understand. Okay, so my truck is a stick. I don't know why that matters. As is my car. So, again, I'm not sure why that matters. People buy and drive what they want. Although I jokingly with Pubby, we were talking about driving stick. There's either the car drives you or you drive the car, or you drive stick, right? But anyways, whatever. So I guess this is Chris Barber trying to be tough. I don't understand. I don't understand what he's getting here, but it's really kind of weird. I do know. So firstly, I got my AZ in 2016 is when I got it, because I've had a multitude of careers. And, from being a gemologist and a diamond grader, patented an invention. I worked for Harley Davidson. I was a sales director for a large chain. I also then established my own brand and was on the university campus for many, many years, where I was exposed to the woke culture as it started 2012, 2013. And I had to live within that sphere and navigate it. So that's why I understand it like the back of my hand. That's why I know how to message around it. And eventually, trucking became like a side hustle. My brother asked me to get involved, and you wanted to do something. I've told you all this many times before, why I got into trucking or whatever. But back to his tweets, his 30 years of trucking with a stick shift, leading the world's convoy, #winning and proud. Is he proud? Is he like LGBT proud? Is that what he's saying? I don't know. How many years have you been driving BJdichter? Okay, I guess this is tough guy stuff, but I mean, I haven't spoken to Chris too many times. It was very quick, but whenever we did. But I do remember being on stage with him and telling, I think it was the first time we were on stage. It was me, Tamara, and Chris wanted to be a spokesperson. Okay, fine. Fine, just let's be careful with messaging. Not that people couldn't go on to TikTok and say whatever they wanted. That's what I was trying to encourage. But in terms of official messaging, because we were in a PR war with the government, we had to be very careful to deal with blowback and how to handle it, because I know how media works in that sort of sphere. And so we were on stage, and Pastor Hildebrand was speaking, and I spoke to Tamara, whispered back and forth with her, you go first. And she said, yeah, okay, I'll go first. That's fine. And then I pulled Chris aside, and he leaned down. And he said, I said, Chris, Tamara's going to go first. You go second. And then I'll just kind of wrap it up at the end and, kind of do a conclusion and thank everybody and all that sort of stuff. And he leans down and he says, I don't like talking in front of large groups of people. I'm like, oh. I thought you wanted to be okay, fine. All right, tough guy. Fine, I'll do it. And, I didn't, fine. People get afraid. They get stage fright, and they get afraid of being in front of large groups of people. Okay, fine. I don't have a problem with that. But don't then, run around swinging your dick, #leadership. If you can't talk in front of large groups of people when we needed it, which was right then and there. We don't need it now. We needed it then, in the middle of chaos, when the government was breathing down our necks. That's when we needed it. But whatever. It is what it is. He didn't want to. He was afraid to talk in front of large groups of people. Okay, So I'm confused about what he's getting at here, but that's fine. It is what it is. But the other thing is doing trucking for me was pretty easy. I got to be honest, because I've done so many different careers. I'm kind of a generalist. Lots of experience on racetrack and cars, lots of experience on motorcycles. I'm just a car guy. And so trucks was just a natural thing to me. It was pretty easy. When was that posted by Chris Barber, says Carla? It was posted this morning, coincidentally after yesterday's war campaign, which we'll get into in a second. But with all of this stuff, I see these sorts of posts and comments, and I feel bad. I feel sad for them, because I know he's a slave. I know that, and he knows that. He knows he's a slave as well. That's why he's angry. And you know how I know? You know how I know he's a slave? Because they tried to do that with me too. And I'm not talking about Freedom Convoy. I'm talking about years before. Remember, I was a candidate for the Conservatives. I've done some stuff politically with different groups of people for different causes, some of which you have no idea I was involved with. And the entire step of the way, what I now call Big Con Canada Inc., the con artists that are within the political parties, that are they're the people that they dictate the narrative. It's the reason they take somebody like Pierre Poilievre, who looks strong, and turn him into a eunuch and try to appease people on the left. that comes from big money in Big Con Canada Inc. So I know he's a slave because they tried repeatedly to do that with me. And I gave him the big middle finger because I don't care. There's nothing they could hold over me. I don't really, it doesn't bother me at all. And I feel bad. But for me, they're so predictable that I can predict what they're doing six steps ahead with my brain closed. Like I already know what they're doing. But Chris doesn't have, I guess, I don't know if it's I wouldn't say that would be mean. He just doesn't have the maybe political experience or the political chops to understand how he's been turned into a slave. And there's many other people, and I feel bad for them. It's too bad. And that's what I tried to indicate during the POEC. That's why what Tamara says and what Chris says is not credible. Nothing they say is credible. Why? Because they have been threatened repeatedly after I was removed from the board that if you don't do what we say you should, don't do what we tell you to do and say what we tell you to say, then we're going to cancel your free legal advice. Well, that's not free legal advice. That's some parasitic opportunists that have taken over you and turned you into a slave. And that's what they've done with Tamara and Chris. So anything they say is not credible, right? Because of that. And I'm sympathetic to it because they're both facing criminal charges. They're the only two people of the 7 of us on the original board that got criminal charges. There's some questions about how that even happened and things leading up to it. I don't want to speculate too much because I don't know. But I do have just one question that in, the snarkiness from Chris Barber, despite my sympathy, he's repeatedly, it's been a year now, he doesn't want to answer this question. Before I muted him, but this came back on my radar again today for some reason, I said to him quite directly, I just want you to answer one question. And for all of you, if you can ask Chris Barber this question online, ask him, Chris, how are you related to Premier Brad Wall? Premier Brad Wall is very popular in conservative circles. He is very well connected in conservative circles. And don't buy into there's federal versus provincial. That's the shell game that the Big Con Canada plays when they want to show there's a separation division. No, it's one big club. They all know each other. That's why it's a revolving door from the federal party to the provincial parties. It's all the same people who move back and forth, right? So I want to know how Chris Barber is related to Premier Brad Wall. Well, how? We're still waiting for that. Premier Brad Wall wouldn't answer the question, and Chris Barber wouldn't answer the question. Well, why? Right? And then the other question, I guess, since we're asking questions, was why did Chris Barber move his truck? Did he know something nobody else knew? Because I remember asking him. It was when we went on the stage, if I remember correctly, and I have to go back through all the calendar and try to focus and pinpoint exactly which day it was. But I'm 99 because I remember. I think we were outside. It was cold, and I asked him what, and he was doing this, and I said, where'd you go? He said, I went to move my truck. I'm like, why'd you move your truck? And he said, because it was very weird. His response, he said, it was just parked in a weird place that it was obstructing somebody, and something I had to move it and whatever. Like, okay. That's fine. But then he says, February 7th, you can see on here, I used it for slow rolls outside the city. So on February 7th. Well, that's not what he told me. And I knew all about the slow rolls because certain people were explaining to me everything that's going on. So why do you say something different? And that's why I responded with a tweet about, the good thing about telling the truth is you don't have to remember anything, right? You can just tell the truth. It's pretty simple. But anyways, whatever. Again, these people are slaves to the political class. They've walked right into the trap which I saw a mile away because I know how they operate. And that's why they send out the Big Con Canada smear merchants all this time doing their best to defame my reputation because they don't want you listening to me. God forbid people would listen to me and hear the truth. And, I got to give a lot of credit to, Diverge Media when he first reached out to me and said, let's do an interview. And he said told me after the fact he wasn't on board until he talked to me and then confirmed with all the evidence. And he realized, oh, wait, Dichter's been telling the truth the whole time. I'm like, yeah, I got other stuff in my life. I can't waste my time lying about this crap. Like, come on. Life is too complicated as it is, right? Anyways, let me go to your comments right now. Who cares how long you have been driving a truck? I don't know why it's relevant, but I don't know. So 2016 is when I got my AZ license. I hope everybody's happy. I hope that makes all the difference now. I don't know when I got my motorcycle license too. Like, I don't know, whatever. It's just this kind of pseudo-macho beta sort of, phony sort of pseudo-tough guy attitude. Like, oh, my truck is stick. Like, okay, so's mine. And who cares? Like, who cares? Like, why does that matter? Anyways, I've been a rescue for 30 years, Chris. You rescue for 3 weeks. Oh, that's funny. Jesse, you're awesome. That is very, very sweet. Say hello. Say hello to Rocky. Oh my God, Ro was awesome. Thank you, Bridget Belton, for the birthday post for Ro today. Oh, it's his birthday? Well, happy birthday. I hope that's the case, but I'm going to take your word for it here since we're on the stream. The War Campaign stream confirmed some of my suspicions. Okay, so we're going to get into that. And the question I have is from David. Who is propping up Trudeau? The so-called election elites. Trudeau is acting like he's invincible and untouchable. David, remember, one of the firms, the lobby firms, which have all the power, that's why they don't care what we say, they care what the lobby firms say, because that's where the money comes from, that's where the volunteers ultimately come from. One of the primary lobby firms that the Conservatives use was co-founded by Justin Trudeau's chief of staff, Katie Telford, and her husband, or her apparent husband, but there's a lot more to that. They co-founded the firm that the Conservatives use. So again, it's one big club. That's why Conservatives talk inflation and Trudeau talks, gender equality, all that sort of progressive stuff. And the rest of us are not allowed to have our concerns and opinions addressed. That's just the rules. And take it or leave it. And if you don't take it, then they're going to smear you and call you a bunch of names, just like the lefties do, right? Yes, and okay, so fine. So Ro, by the way, Ro did the funniest impression. This is what I was getting on when I was commenting yesterday during their stream, when they wanted him to come in, when Big Con Canada Inc., aka the Freedom Corp, wanted Ro and War Campaign to be the person of color representative for Freedom Corp, which is really, really insulting, to be entirely honest, at least from my opinion. I was insulted for him. And he did this amazing, he turned into Ronjit and did this impression for them. It was brilliant. But Ro, happy birthday, brother, and happy freedom to you and the rest of the guys of the War Campaign. And you're doing great by helping give Chris a voice and giving Chad a voice and giving everybody else a voice. That's props to you guys. All right. Tao, what did I miss? Well, you can go back and Tao, I think, hopefully, if this all works, you'll be able to listen to this on Spotify if this all works out properly. So, anyways. Did you know George Soros is involved in our media and politics? Yeah, the thing is with George Soros is he's a vegetable. Like, there's not much left of him. It's his son, Alexandra, that he runs everything, Alexandra Soros. And that's where the money... And I think what they're doing is they're all just trying to go after daddy's money, and they tell daddy that, oh, we have all these different initiatives, and they're just writing checks and they're throwing money all over the place. And I think they're just trying to exploit him for as much money as possible. And they do that by just, professing to support these SJW NGOs and people in politics and whatever. And I think that money's going to run out eventually. At least that's how I see. Tal, you hate Spotify. Bro, what do you want from me? I got to do something. They've come out with a product that's simple. I'm testing it now. If it works out, then great. But it is what it is. Two-tiered justice system, yes, that is a concern that we have. All right, so in relation to the topic that we were just discussing with the people who have been captured and are slaves for Big Con Canada Inc., and a branch of Big Con Canada Inc. is the Freedom Corp, or has become the Freedom Corp. That's why I'm not involved in it anymore. That's why Chris is not involved in it anymore. Chad is not involved in it anymore, because we're not slaves to the political class and the political parties. And let's hope that remains. And hopefully more people will have the strength and the courage. Those who profess leadership will show some courage and step away and be an independent thinker again, and then maybe come to align with the rest of us who are not whores for the political parties. Right? Or they can just remain cowards and scared and just hide and hope somebody else fixes it for them, which will be us, by the way. All right, so in relation to this topic, two interesting things that went on this week. One is this National Citizens Inquiry, and tangentially related was yesterday's stream on War Campaign. So once again, happy birthday, Ro. So yesterday on War Campaign, Ro and Pan and the rest of the guys had Chris Guerra on from Adopt a Trucker. For Chris Guerra to tell his story, his perspective of everything that he's gone through. So you saw Chad's story, you've heard Chris's story, and if I had a crystal ball, my guess would be you're going to hear some other stories in the future as well. But I don't know. We'll see what happens, right? I don't have any, they do their own thing, and I just support what I agree with. And I haven't seen much I disagree with, but if I disagree, I'd tell them I disagree, and that's it, right? And they probably wouldn't care anyways, right? Because we're all independent thinkers. So it what that live stream confirmed, and I'd suggest everybody watch it, and more importantly, share it. Share it with others in freedom groups on Facebook, because that seems to be where the largest amount of echo chambering is going on in Facebook. But share it with other people. That interview on War Campaign is very important. People, it's a really good introductory step for people who have bought into the fake narrative of, the deal. But anyways, the stream confirmed much of what I've been saying all year since the end of the Freedom Convoy. As did Chad's interview with War Campaign as well. So you have some good sources that are there. And I think with Chad's interview, if I remember correctly, they took his interview and they kind of spliced it down to a shorter version. I think there's a 20-minute or 30-minute long video that really gets to the meat of their conversation that was it's very enlightening. And when I'm listening to the stuff, like yesterday I was listening in the truck.
Sorry, I wasn't able to share that for you.
Okay, thanks Siri. I've been playing with an AI shortcut API on all my devices, and ever since I've been doing that, clearly it's following me and everything I say. But anyway, so yesterday when I was in the truck, I was driving back listening to the interview with Chris Guerra, and I was doing a lot of yep, yep. 100, yeah, yep, I agree. That is exactly what happened. A lot of that. And with Chad, although Chad was a little different because he was a treasurer, he was dealing with the financial issues that are still unresolved around the money that was coming in, and I really didn't want anything to do with that. I really didn't care. But I did help the people with the Bitcoin, obviously, because I was the only one there who understood Bitcoin and who was a Bitcoiner. So I just didn't really have a choice. But I really gave them a lot of autonomy to do all of that and just kind of be supportive for us, which they did. And they were great. And you can read about what happened with Bitcoin in this book if you go to honkingforfreedom.com, and it is now available on Apple Books, Amazon, Etsy, and Kobo. So please share. If you haven't read it, I promise you're going to love it. I have yet to hear somebody say they didn't like it. Carla, National Citizens Inquiry. Yes, so I'm going to talk about that. All right. So Chris Guerra was on. I was listening to it. It was all great. And it was really interesting to see that another thing that happened earlier in the week was some of the people linked to Big Con Canada Inc. all of a sudden started popping up and getting snarky online with Chris Guerra, trying to take credit for Chris Guerra's Adopt a Trucker website. So nobody argued all through the commission and leading up to the commission that Chris Guerra set up Adopt a Trucker. I remember in the first press conference, towards the end, Chris was standing kind of kitty corner to me, and I pulled Chris in. I said, Chris, he had an Adopt a Trucker t-shirt, and I tried to help to promote. People who want to support us, need information, want to register, go to adoptatrucker.com. This is Chris Guerra. He's running Adopt a Trucker, and so everybody knows that. That's been the way it's been for a year. All of a sudden, this week, other people connected, the slaves for Big Con Canada Inc., are now trying to say, oh, Chris, you didn't do it all on your own. It's not your thing, or I can't remember the exact wording for it. But it just goes to show the level of deception and deceit they will go to just to lie about. They'll just make stuff up, just out of thin air, like the fake news media. The people in the political class, they're no different. They'll do exactly what the fake news media does. And it's not just, by the way, fake news media on the left. Fake news media on the right does the exact same thing, by the way. And I know we get uncomfortable when we say that, but there is some truth to it. Anyways, so they started trying to take credit for Chris Barber's Adopt a Trucker and to trivialize how much involvement he has. Carla, can we say, firstly, I say the soccer ball lawyer, for those who've seen Castaway, and that's a play on what War Campaign has been doing. But the soccer ball lawyer is a foot soldier. He's just taking orders. He doesn't make decisions. People are making decisions for him and telling him what to do. That's been the entire time. That's how Big Con Canada Inc. works. So that's why I would like people to maybe start not so much focusing on him and making him the fault guy. He's just the lawyer taking orders from people above him. It's the people above him that you need to go after. And speaking of the people above him, did you notice the people linked to Big Con Canada Inc. seem to be organizing the National Citizens Inquiry? Did you notice that? Did you notice when you look at the list of speakers and contributors and panelists, how many of them are linked to Big Con Canada Inc. or are slaves for Big Con Canada Inc.? For example, Butt Hurt Locker Tom was, he's retired from his duties of helping to kettle trucks. So he was now a speaker, I think yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, at the National Citizens Inquiry. How? I asked somebody, he's a COVID expert now? I mean, he's crazy, but now he's no, he's there just as a concerned citizen. Oh, how convenient. Like, God, anybody buys this nonsense. Like, it's so funny. They're as bad as trying to get Bill Gates to be the friendly face to sell COVID. They're equally stupid. They really are. So it's, I just thought it was interesting. If you go look through the list of the people involved in the National Citizen Inquiry, how many of them are linked to Big Con Canada Inc. and the group of people that, can I swear for a second? I'll swear for a second, to the group of people that fucked us in Ottawa, right? That they're all the same people. It's very, very interesting. And I'll tell you a funny story about that. When I was in Ottawa preparing for the POEC, the day before, I was downstairs in the hotel with John Goddard, who came to Ottawa. John Goddard, who helped me with the book. And you'll see John Goddard's name is on there. And thank God for him. I couldn't have done this without him. I've never written a book before, so he's amazing. And we were in Starbucks. We were waiting for my lawyer, Jim Carahalios. He was busy with something. It was early in the morning. So he was going to come down, and then me and Jim were going to do some prep the whole afternoon and work through the night and whatever. And what a long day that was. It was really kind of crazy, right? Tao, it is uncanny how the tactics from the Ottawa Citizen and radical left camp and the mainstream conservative camp are one and the same. Oh, they use exactly the same tactics, man. Exactly. And you know why? Do you know how many people who are amongst inside this whole Big Con Canada Inc. thing were trained in the Liberal Party and they came from the Liberals? There's a whole bunch of them. Their pasts are going to come haunt them at some point. They call me all the liberal, but they came from the friggin' Liberal Party. Like, okay, fine. Anyways, so I'm in the Starbucks. This is the day before testifying at the POEC, learning that I don't have standing. I have 20 parties that are going to exclusively cross-examine me. I'm the only one, or one of the only ones, that doesn't have anything on my side. My lawyer can't lead me in questions. They prevent me from crafting a narrative within the POEC. That's what they prevented me from doing. So I had to squeeze as much of the truth as I could in this Q&A form, which were most of their questions, as you'll notice if you watch it, they weren't questions, they were accusations, right? That's how this whole thing operated. And we did our best for me to, if I had standing, I could have ripped that whole thing apart. And the ruling would have been probably much different. But, you know, the political class conspired together to ensure that that doesn't happen. Because the Liberals wanted to say that it was chaos in the streets and, pandemonium, Mad Max, all those things that I've talked about in the past. And the Conservatives wanted it to be, it was peaceful in the beginning and it got out of hand. Both of them are lying. I came through trying to give as much of the truth as possible, given the restrictions. Okay, so I'm in the Starbucks with John, and we're talking about just a bunch of things and, in general, what do you think it's going to be? Friendly conversation. What's going to happen over the next couple of days, how long he's staying in Ottawa, where are you going in Ottawa, because he was going to visit some sites and all that sort of stuff. And who do I notice, or John noticed actually, who is sitting right behind me in the Starbucks of my hotel the day before the POEC? Does somebody want to guess? There's a 30-second delay, so if you want to guess for the comments. If you want to guess, type in the comments now and it'll pop up in the encoder. Who do you think was sitting behind me in the what's it called? In the Starbucks at my hotel the day before my testimony? You'll never guess. You'll never guess. And remember that they also were, that's where Humpty Dumpty and all of these other people were meeting with people in the Conservative Party. Melissa Lantsman and Pierre Poilievre was meeting with them. All of them were meeting back and forth, right? All right, so what do we got? We got Mad Max. Nope. It wasn't Mad Max sitting behind me. It wasn't Trudeau either, Mr. Blackface. It wasn't him. Tagged you in the link in Discord. Okay, if it's in Discord, I can't. I'll check after. Oh, you guys are talking to each other. Okay, fine. The person who was sitting behind me, it's so amazing. The person who was sitting behind me in the Starbucks the day before, A lot of good info is coming out of the NHS. Yeah, okay, I agree. Oh, haha, Gilliam, you got it, brother. Gilliam. Why do I keep saying that? You know why? Because somebody else kept saying it. Guillaume. Guillaume is in Quebec. Anyways, Guillaume, you are correct, sir. The person who was sitting behind me the day before my testimony was Preston Manning. Interesting. Because I found out only a couple of months ago that Preston Manning was having conversations with Tamara and Chad and Chris Barber and Keith Wilson and Eva. Nobody told me that. And it's interesting to find out afterwards. It was, Humpty Dumpty when I was nice to him and he was trying to be nice to me before they started dumping money into paying for his platform to grow so he could take a dump on me, which is what that's all about. Before they captured him, he went to Ottawa that same week. It was that same week or the week before, one of them. So they were all meeting behind the scenes in Ottawa trying to figure out, I don't know, tactics to smear Dichter. This guy Dichter doesn't stop with the truth. We got to put an end to that. We can't have the truth coming out. God forbid. And there's going to be more coming out on that because there are some other senior people that have some very, very concerning affiliations to what was going on. But anyways, so that is, behind the scenes, there's been nothing but millions of dollars trading back and forth from big donors to proxy organizations, many of you to be distributed to stakeholders, to pay to elevate their platforms, because this is how they control the narrative, right? Their narrative, not the truth. And they utilize all these platforms and they reach out to these creators, YouTubers, whatever, and they help elevate their platforms so it just becomes more noise repeating the lie. That's what they're trying to do. So, Tao, to your credit, yeah, it's exactly the same as what happens on the liberal end of politics. And you know what's funny? Now that I'm addressing stuff, if you ask them direct questions, and you'll see I've already seen this starting to happen as a result of the interview that Chris Guerra did with War Campaign yesterday, because I know that's one of the platforms they're worried about and that they pay attention to. That's why they first tried to capture them, and when that didn't work, they looked for the first opportunity to ban some of their videos from the Canadian audience or take them down, right? Exactly what the lefties do. And when that doesn't work, you know what the next thing they're going to do? Remember we talked about the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, right? What's number 2? Well, we'll go through. Number 1, when somebody's ideas are challenged and they don't want to admit that they were wrong, they change the topic. Number 2 is the AdHominem Attack. They will play the victim card and they will say, you're causing division. Trudeau's getting elected because of you, right? How many times have you seen Wilson do that, right? That it's going to be all your fault. It's going to be because you're asking questions about the truth of what went on at the POEC and what went on in the Freedom Convoy and who sabotaged it. Because you're asking those questions, it's your fault that Trudeau is in office. Like, excuse me, he's been in office since 2015, since you fucking losers blew the election that you shouldn't have blown, and you've blown every election since with your stupidity of chasing liberals off a cliff. It's your fault, right? But like all extremists, like the woke activists, the political class are not only collectivists in their nature, but they also defer all blame onto other people. That's just how they work. So just a reminder, because you're going to see this, it's going to increase more and more as you see more and more attacks on myself, because they think this is all me, right? They think it's, none of you have agency. Like the left, they look at people as collectivists. Let me explain. Actually, I should touch on this. This is how the political class thinks. This is why they're so easy to predict. Big Con Canada Inc. is like this. Most of the people in politics are like this. Not all. There are some good people, and I'm still in touch with the really good people behind the scenes who are trying to fix all of this. But they put everybody into a voting block. You've heard me say on the stream a couple of times, people are just responding with their political goggles on. That's how they operate, and they're trying to train you to operate the same way. That to see people only as conservative or liberal. They do this in their leadership races. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen, like this level of psychopathy, that all of a sudden the party just divides into 5 different groups or whatever, and you're either a Pierre guy or you're either, who else did he run against? I don't know, whatever. You're either in one camp or the other, and that's it. It's all collectivist thinking. That's how political people think. That's who's leading our countries. That's why they're falling off a cliff. Just because they're under the philosophical underpinning of theirs is so flawed and so aligned with the values of the extreme left. I don't mean liberal people, like people who are actually liberal, who we can engage with and disagree on policy. I mean, kind of the radical leftist type people. David Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Yeah, I've read it many times. Same playbook. Militias. Yes, yeah. There's that. They all love the 48 Laws of Power as well. Which there's a whole bunch of things on this. Miss Cheryl, we love you, Ben. We have your back. I love you too. You guys are awesome. You guys are the best. That's why this is all positive, because you're all so nice. And this whole week, I don't know, was a tough week. But anyways, all right, so the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. When you ask questions about people in let's say the leadership of the Freedom Convoy, if you want to call it that. I was trying to make it not so much leadership, just, how many times in interviews I said it's a decentralized movement. There's a reason I was trying to do that, so there wouldn't be one single point of failure, 1 or 2 people to blame, to try to make it just a movement. That's why I didn't talk about myself. It's not because I'm a Fed. It's because I wasn't there to talk about myself. I was there to talk about you, and I was there to talk about the truckers who are sitting freezing their asses off. And I know, because I know what it's like to sit in my truck in the middle of winter and having to wake up every 2 or 3 hours to shut the heat on because I don't have an APU on my truck, to warm up the engine again, get some heat it up for 20 minutes, and then shut it down and go back to sleep for a few hours. Like, I know what that's like. I know what those guys were living under, and it must have been so much worse because it was so cold, right? David, got to run. Go, brother. We'll talk to you soon. And Ken Paisley. Yeah, classical liberal. It's a good way to describe it. Classical liberal includes people who have liberal and people who have conservative values, but they're, they believe in the system of British common law, a liberal democracy. That's the problem with you. When we have these fake news organizations and they take the word liberal and progressive and put it together, it makes everything so confusing, and it's dishonest and it's not accurate, right? There is the Liberal Party, which is a bunch of lunatics, and there's the Conservative Party. But there are people who are not politically affiliated who have classically liberal to conservative value systems, depending on what the topics are. But anyways, that's political philosophy. We'll talk about that another time. But anyways, the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. This is what you're going to experience when you ask people, there's the, what's it called? There's a group of the Chris Barber circle jerk that just kind of go around and, it's kind of like, oh, Doyle rules. Like, oh, Bridget's this and Dichter's that and Chris Guerra's that. Like, they're adding to the list of all the people who are bad people, alienating themselves, not realizing it. But whenever you ask, like if you ask, what's his name? Chris Barber, how are you related to Brad Wall? I just legitimately want to know, how is he related to Brad Wall? Because, obviously that's going to lead to other questions, but that's the first and foremost question that we need to do. He uses tactic number 1 on the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, which is changes the topic, right? He'll change it to, well, how long you been driving a truck? Because that was my last question to him was, I don't want you to answer any question except for one. How are you related to Brad Wall? And his response was, well, I've been driving a truck for 30 years. That's not what I asked you. I asked you how you're related to Brad Wall. Notice he hasn't said I'm not related to him. And it's been how many months now? So we know he is. So the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, change the topic, ad hominem, mind reading, word salad, that's what Blackface Trudeau and Keith Wilson do. Analogy instead of reason, it's too complicated to explain, or the Kathy Newman, Jordan Peterson tactic of, so you're saying straw man. That's what you're going to experience when you start to ask legitimate questions about these people, their involvement, and what they did to the Freedom Convoy and what they've been doing since, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we haven't even gone into. You're going to hit one of those 7 signs. So, and if you do, that means you win. That means you've won the argument. So you're saying, love that interview. Robert, if you love that, if you want the funniest 20 minutes of your life, there's a YouTuber by the name, he uses, what's his name? I forget his name. I always forget his name, his actual name. But there's a YouTuber, the name of the channel called Dr. Randomer Cam, one word. And he has, he's a comedian, but like a political comedian, puppeteer, musician, all sorts of stuff. He does, he's got a video up called Jordan Peterson, Kathy Newman Fixed. And he replaces Jordan Peterson with his puppet and does the debate with Kathy Newman. It's a masterpiece. It has got to be the funniest thing I've ever seen in a long time. You have to watch it. It's brilliant. Radson McKenzie, Russian Sugar Daddy, Eva Chipiuk, Wilson, Christine Anderson, all have a political angle. Yeah, and I have some people looking into Eva Chipiuk. She's from, her background in the Ukraine. And you notice she's Ukrainian, but she's never said anything positive about Ukraine. Not that I'm saying you should take a side, because I think they both suck. But it would be very odd for somebody to be Ukrainian, but not supporting the Ukraine. Or is it? Seems to be a church with her family name in it in her town as well. Anyways, down the rabbit holes people are going, right? It's very interesting. Barber said after the convoy he was finished with the activism and wanted to fade out of the spotlight. Yeah, I guess they convinced him to be a slave. What are you going to do? When you interact with people and you see the 7 sides of cognitive dissonance and you get, the Chris Barber circle jerk attacking you, remember something. What other people think about you is none of your business. It's irrelevant. Either answer the question, and if they don't answer the question, that means you've won. And that's how we move forward with this process. And check out the War Campaign interview with Chris Barber. With Chris Guerra yesterday. Check out the one with Chad. I'm sure there's going to be much more to come on the topics, probably. And but that National Citizens Inquiry, there might be some stuff that came out of it, but it's all scripted. This is all political party nonsense. It's designed to do what they were trying to do with the Freedom Convoy. They were trying to take over the Freedom Convoy and make that a block of voters for the political establishment. Remember I told you they have a collectivist worldview. They look at everybody as blocks, as voting blocks. So they tried to do that with the Freedom Convoy, and now they're trying to do it with anybody who has questions or oppositions to vaccines. It's not about vaccine data. It's not about getting it's not going to have any teeth. It's not going to have any changes to legislation. They're going to make you think that we're going to really do. They're going to do nothing. It's there just to rage farm and to build you into a block of votes for a political party that you're probably going to vote for anyways because we need to get rid of Trudeau. But that's the level of pathology of some of these people. And once you've been through it once or twice within the big con Canada establishment, they become very easy to predict, and you're going to see common trends over and over. If you look back at many things that happened politically in the past, you can almost overlay them one or the other because it's the same tactics over and over again. All right, I got to run, and Guerra said yesterday it was the leaders after the convoy that destroyed what the convoy was. And yes, that's completely intentional because that's what they've been told to do. Like I told you, a couple of people, you can't believe what's coming out of their mouths because they're trembling with fear, because they're facing prison time. And I think they realize now that that's not going to happen. And that's probably why maybe they're speaking out a little bit. But that's what was used to capture them was those sorts of threats. And I sympathize. I empathize with that. I really do. But you know what? Leadership is not easy. It's difficult. And everything that I've been doing for the past year has not been easy. Going into the POEC by myself, being abandoned by all of them, and going just with one lawyer, exclusively cross-examined, and having the Big Con Canada Inc. stooge lawyer try to smear me as, I don't know, affiliated with the Russians when they brought in Russian money. That has not been easy. But what other people think about me, it's none of my business. But it's not easy. Leadership is hard, and it should be. So, okay, I love you all, and have an awesome day. I think I may do a stream in the morning. I got to go out to the States tomorrow, but I should have a little window of time to do something and hang out with all of you. It looks like Spotify only allows 1 hour, so it got cut off in the middle. But I will get this all sorted out so you all have an audio version that you can share as well. Tao, I know you don't like Spotify, but I need to do something because I had a bunch of people ask me they wanted an audio form. And I want truckers to be able to listen to it. And truckers, unless you're streaming YouTube and just listening and not looking to it and throwing it on the seat next to you or whatever, it's just a lot easier to have an audio podcast for them. Okay? I love you all. I'll be back in the Discord later on. So if you have anything to send me, post me there or on Twitter, all that sort of stuff. And have an awesome day. Be good to one another. And remember, what people think about you is none of your business. Have a good day.